But it's good to see you. It's been
Yeah,
a little while.
It has been a while.
Yeah.
2 or 3 years.
The COVID has like messed everything up at
Yeah.
that time. You like traveling all over from like what, New Zealand, Romania.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
tough.
Dude, I mean, that's the life of the sport. Like being a coach, I moved pretty much every 2 years from like 2015, or every 1 or 2 years, like over 3 different countries. Like, as you know, like contracts change, job offers, whatever else, and you just fucking moving all the time. It's just
Well, the thing is, I
crazy.
was like in the US, you have like the strength coaches that become GAs and then they do their thing in college and then they go from GA-ship to intern to part-time, or not to part-time, but like, you know, their first full-time gig.
Yeah.
And they're traveling within America, and it's hard.
Yeah.
We're traveling all over the world.
Yeah. And then when you're tied to visas and stuff, like,
yeah.
Obviously you've probably seen what's going on in MLR right now with
Yeah.
teams folding. Like, could you imagine being on a visa right now tied to one of those teams?
Well, that's sort of why at the time during COVID, I got out of the team sport environment because everyone was getting furloughed. I went to the sports tech and had my own like sort of, you know, private clients. That sort of saved me. And I got to a point where I was lucky because the employment at the time, I was like the designated homeless if I left, because I came back to the US in 2019, like that November.
Yeah.
And then my family and I, we went out to Hawaii for Thanksgiving. And then when I got back, basically the world shut down.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll be fine. It's 2 years, just clicked over.
Yeah.
And then 2 years later, I was like, oh crap, I'm in a bit of trouble here. Australia hadn't opened up. Because like I was in that period where Australia had just closed down.
Yeah.
And America was just about to close down. So if I'd left, I'd be like the designated homeless.
Yeah.
So I had to renew my work visa while I was living in the US. And although the US immigration probably know more about me than my own bloody country, it was like they delved into it so hard. And I was like, man, I just need that green card so I can be safe.
Yep.
That's coming next year, which is thankfully it changes the game. And obviously I know you guys got it.
Yeah.
But it changes the game quite a bit when you're working internationally as a foreigner, right?
Dude, it's so much better. Don't have to be tied to a company. Like, we were lucky because I applied when I first came over. I applied for a green card after 1 year just to basically have it. And we won the national championship as like the D1 club. So we put in the application.
Those the Huns or the Blacks?
Yeah, the Huns.
Huns, yeah.
And I was like, okay, we'll put the application in. And be like, okay, basically just show expertise, whatever else. And they come back and they're, well, because I didn't win the national championship, it doesn't count. And we're like, okay, but what if like an NFL coach, he wins the Super Bowl, but he didn't win the Super Bowl?
Yeah,
they're just like, they want to see like, it's weird. They want to see.
That's interesting though, because when I came across, because when were you in the NRL? Were we in the league together, or did I miss you?
20. I started like interning like mid 2011 and got out end of 2014.
So we might have just, because I was with the New South Wales Cup, the reserve team in 10 and 11. Then I went to the Rabbitohs in 2012. Then obviously 13 to 16 won the premiership, the world title, that sort of good stuff.
Yeah.
Were you at the Auckland Nines?
Yes, for 2016.
So how do we not bump into each other when we were there?
Damn.
Because I was there. I went to all the Auckland Nines. It was like a crazy.
Man, those are good times too.
Yeah.
Those Nines competitions, and man, they stopped that. Did they stop that recently?
Well, they stopped that I think 17 or 18. Because I remember it was like, so we went through all the craze where like Russell Crowe was obviously one of the owners.
Yeah.
And he got involved quite heavily when he first put the money over. I believe it was like 2006, 2007.
Yeah.
But then he sort of like gradually filtered away. But then when Madge came and was part of the team, we started getting that success. He came back a little bit. I remember like he presented all of our like little jackets with like the Sons of Glory. It was like a bikie jacket, had like the rabbit fur around and then got to witness some cool stories with Uncle Rusty. He told this really cool story. We playing the Brisbane Broncos up in Brisbane. Yeah, at Suncorp. I think it was like an Anzac Day game, Anzac Day night. Sorry, and we hadn't won up there for like 20 years or something ridiculous. It might have been less than that, but I was sitting next to Russell Crowe at the bar, and we just were in like the hotel. Like, the hotel, we come through, there's the bar there. Yeah. We had the whole section blocked off, all the security, and somehow I landed sitting next to Russell Crowe, and he is a phenomenal storyteller. He was like, man, I'm so glad we won. I had a few milkshakes by then. He's like, man, I'm so glad that we won this. He goes, it's been like a 10-year journey. And I was like, what does that mean? He's like, yeah, well, he owns like a very like big property farm up probably about 4-hour drive from Brisbane, like in Coffs Harbour, right? And it's where all like the famous people that come to Sydney, like basically any Hollywood superstar that wants to get away out of the limelight from the paparazzi, they'll be, hey Russell, I'm in town, like just want to get away with the family. So he'll book them in. It's like a little hotel residence, and it's phenomenal. Like they have their own bar, church. They get all the celebrity weddings going there.
Oh my gosh.
He has a nightclub, and he was telling a story about how when it gets a little bit crazy and they get a few of the strippers to come through. There's all sorts of debauchery that goes there. But he was saying like every year for like 10 years or so, he would travel to Suncorp Stadium for the game against the Broncos in different formats. So originally he was like, took his private jet, then he took a helicopter, then he got like a limousine, and every single time he failed on the more like luxurious modes of transport, he would scale it back, right? And he got to the point where the year that we won it, he rode like 200 something kilometers, which is what, like 120 something miles from his farm to the game. And he was like,
no, so
at the end of the day, he's like, shit, and it's like, shit, I got to do that again now. That was quite, quite funny. But you would have bumped into some characters along the way.
Oh, man, I can't even remember that far back. Like, so just going through all the different things in, I guess, what a shit show it was, especially at that time around there. Man, it was crazy. Like, there were 3 or 4 coaches within like 3 or 4 years. Whole staff changes. Like, I was trying to making sure I get my master's done there. I had an agreement with the old staff. The old staff were going to have to get an agreement with the new staff. Dude, it was nuts, man. It was just like, I mean, everyone's going through it initially.
For sure, yeah. But how'd you end up in the US originally?
So that was from, so when I finished at the Warriors, I had one of the assistant strength and conditioning coaches there. His brother was a player agent in rugby union. And then they were looking in Romania at a professional club team that he was dealing with for a strength and conditioning coach. And so my mate just came to me, he's like, oh, there's a gig in Romania. Do you want it? And I was like, oh, fuck yeah, send me the contract. I sent him my CV to the player agent. I think the coach there looked at it, and then they just sent me a contract.
Yeah.
I was like, shit, yeah, done. So I spent that time in Romania. That was a shit show, that club season. It was crazy. Like, they didn't do any of our visas. We had like 20 plus foreign players from like Australia, New Zealand, Tonga. Did none of our visas. And so we ended up overstaying like three or more months. And then we just had to go. So we like basically did most of the season, went home, and then that same player agent and the same coach, I guess, were both linked to the Austin team when they were looking to recruit. And so the head coach there, he was getting my CV from the player agent. He was getting my CV from the assistant coach. He didn't realize it was the same person. And then he was like, oh, it's the same person. Then that's when things started rolling through there. And that's how I eventually came over here. And then obviously been out and around since then.
For sure, yeah. Because I know like you and I linked up when I was at Baylor.
Yeah.
And I was finishing up with the football team up there. And you were like, hey, like I'm leaving, getting out of that mess. we won't talk about it too much, but like I'm a big fan of like bringing international processes to the US or anywhere you go. However,
especially in sports that aren't US sports.
For sure, yeah. But my whole big thing is, and that's the reason why I think rugby is not connecting in America, is that like, obviously in Austin they have like a French flavor, and then some other teams have an Aussie flavor or New Zealand flavor or South African flavor. You have to like Americanize it, right? You're like, the high performance model works, but if you don't Americanize it, it's going to fail because it's not their process. So like, did you feel that like when you're working through like the rugby codes in the US, like there's a bit of a barrier to entry because of that sort of philosophy?
I think the biggest barrier was there's the club system, or them not aligning with the club system. Like, I remember saying, like, from day one, like, they should have aligned with the clubs, and the club, just like in the NRL where you have New South Wales Cup, Queensland Cup, D1 should be the reserve grade, basically, and then it should all feed together, and then the clubs then would actually be excited to have a professional team with their players on that team, or their players coming down, whereas instead it's kind of like animosity from the club team to the pro team, because there's so much, like, I wouldn't say poaching, but more like almost like taking advantage of the clubs and stuff, you know.
Because like I don't think a lot of Americans don't really know that college rugby is like legit over here. And you got like I think is it Lindenwood? That's one.
Yep.
Cal Berkeley, obviously, because
Everything out on the West Coast.
Well,
is big.
yeah.
Or even East Coast.
Well, I know Cal because I got a good relationship with the guys out there.
Yeah.
And their head coach, it's Tom. I forgot his last name, but Tom has been there. Wasn't a head coach, but he was like part of the staff.
Yeah.
He was like with them for age, and they won like national championship after national championship. Is ridiculous, but it's like those players don't filter down into the pro rugby or they go internationally. But
yeah,
it's quite a shame because I think like the US talent over here, they could really do some damage, but just poor management.
Yeah, there's no real pathway, and then clubs here it's different, right? Because Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, wherever you have clubs, and people are like mad about their club, and you have a clubhouse, and everyone is at the clubhouse having drinks after the games, and there's like people are essentially supporting their club like thick and thin, and then that club is also connected to a province or a region, so it's like Counties Manukau or North Harbour in New Zealand, and then you've got the clubs in North Harbour all come together and they support that team. Whereas America, you don't really have a club system because everything's like high school, college, and then after college there's like nothing in most sports.
Yeah, I got you.
So it's kind of like it's hard to bring that culture. I mean, rugby it kind of has it, but most teams don't have club rooms. You just turn up to a field. I mean, you turn up to a field and you're getting changed under like a little gazebo on the side of the field. There's nothing there
for sure. But it's even though like rugby is sort of struggling a little bit here in the US, it's pretty cool because I just was in California and met up with one of the NFL teams over there, and they're putting in like some rugby processes. One of their physical therapists, Bobby Gregston, really good dude. We'd been like texting back and forth for like a couple of years, and we finally met. Like that's like the industry, right? And he worked with rugby sevens, with Richie Gray, and he was telling me like, hey, what I learned as an American in rugby sevens has helped me in the football world. So it's cool to see that because there was another guy who's a friend of mine, Dean Riddle. He worked at Seattle Seahawks, and they were doing a lot of work with the Atavis.
They were bringing in like the rugby tackle team.
Yeah, exactly right. So it's cool to see. It's just a shame that it's not kicking off the way we like it to be kicked off. And obviously now the NRL is coming to Vegas.
Yep.
So that's been pretty cool. But
the only time I get to watch rugby league is that because it's on at a normal time.
Get your ass up in the morning, man. I was up this morning
with 2 kids.
At 5
I'm not going to be there.
But your kids will get you up early.
Depends. They either go to bed late or wake up early or both.
Yeah.
And you just
well, I'm ripping my team, the Canberra Raiders. They played this morning at 5 a.m. and we won. We're at the top of the table right now.
Nice.
But it's funny because every time I put some stuff on social media about the Raiders.
Yep.
Everyone's like, oh, but I thought you were Rabbitohs fans. Like, well, I work with the Rabbitohs. Like they have a special place in my heart. But number one is the Raiders. You know what I mean? I've grown up supporting them my whole life. But it's also cool because like of just the different you're talking about like rugby going into like the American football world, but it's also being brought into a little bit in your world now with the MMA stuff and the grappling. That feel like that made a really easy transition for you to do that?
Yeah. The sports are so similar, like combat sports and rugby. Like rugby, like people say it's just running with wrestling, basically. And so within combat sports, well, that's one of the reasons it's easy. The other reason that the transition is relatively easy is like combat sports strength conditioning is generally pretty far behind the times compared to other sports. And it's not a fault of the sport. It's just that the sport is relatively new professionally and doesn't have the same systems in place like rugby and football, where you have teams together on full-time contracts and they're together all year, every year. And so there's a lot of investment, a lot of learning in there. Whereas in combat sports, it's like one guy goes to his local gym,
for sure,
finds a personal trainer. You know what I mean? Like,
is that like the inspiration behind like your business at the Sweet Science of Fighting?
Yeah, that's pretty much
what do you want to achieve with that?
That's mainly like educating fighters, I guess coaches to an extent, on just general good guidelines for strength conditioning practices for combat sports and just kind of combating the stuff out there.
Is there like anything that's like, does a name have a significance as to why you chose that particular name?
Well, it kind of plays off the idea that boxing is the sweet science, and then science isn't like it's
What does
scientific
that
training.
mean, so to speak, though?
What do you, like
Sweet science.
Like sweet science of fighting?
Yeah, what does that mean?
I just made it like as in it's like scientific information for fighting.
Gotcha.
You know what I
Okay,
mean?
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's not like
It's
not like anything special. It's kind of like a play on words. And,
No, I
you know,
gotcha. I feel. So, like, do you think how much of the rugby stuff that you've done feel that it helps prepare you for combat? Is it rugby learning from MMA and grappling, or is it grappling and MMA learning from rugby?
Well, it depends. Like for the technical side, a lot of the grappling stuff I've implemented into some training sessions, like defensive work, contact prep, all that kind of stuff. It kind of translates well. And then the other way, when you're talking about just like general strength and conditioning work or strength power training, transfers well from rugby into the combat sports.
Yeah.
So they kind of marry each other up depending on what you're looking at.
Yeah, gotcha. And in terms of like the conditioning for that, because like you tell me, like when I think of MMA and most people as like just a fan, I instantly go, oh, it's the UFC. I don't know there's more than just the UFC,
Yeah.
but mixed martial arts is obviously many different facets of it. So
Yeah.
where do you sort of like, what line do you draw with where the type of fighters that you work with or are trying to help? Or is it
all combat sports?
Yeah.
Grappling, MMA, striking.
Specialize in a particular discipline though?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, I'll do a lot of my content around MMA and jiu-jitsu just because it's relatively big and there's only so much time. But I mean, yeah, I just cover strike. Like I have a training app as well with programs for fighters. So it's like grappling, MMA, striking. And it's just kind of split like that to make it easy. So yeah, I cover all of them just because general principles are somewhat the same with like small tweaks throughout. But other than that, like training is training. And
Did you have to like learn a new sport, or you'd already been in that combat sport arena before you transition across?
Yeah, I started just.
Is it even a transition, or are you still doing rugby stuff?
I'm gonna do some free rugby stuff probably starting into this month up at our Rock Rugby Fields and just do like.
That's up my way.
Yeah, well, you're in Round Rock.
I'm still in Round Rock. Yeah.
Oh shit, yeah. We're close by up there. So the Rock Rugby Fields there, and probably I'm just gonna do like combat games, small sided games, just have like the high school, whatever high school upwards of players who want to come by and just do like a Saturday morning, have a run around, do some combat stuff, do some small sided games, maybe some speed work, and then 30 to 45 minutes and be done. Just to do a little more coaching in person there as well, and then just do it, keep things fresh and stuff.
For sure, yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much the extent of the rugby stuff. I don't want to go back to like a full-time team environment.
Yeah,
it's too much. I'm not going to travel with 2 little kids at home and stuff like that. It's crazy.
What about like, so the type of fighters that are you working specifically like one-on-one with fighters at the moment?
I've got one back home that I'm helping just because he's pushing like ADC, like one of the top competition trials and stuff like that. But typically I'm just trying to keep them on the app, so it's better for my time. I can still help them on there, but I'm not having to do one-on-one stuff because obviously you're limited doing one-on-one with your time, how much you can charge. Like the market will dictate what you can charge. Fighters are generally poor. So I'm not going to try and be selling like $300 a month. And if you have 10 clients, that's like a big workload. 10 clients is a lot. You're making $3,000. Like no way.
I gotcha. Yeah. And what is like the mentality of fighters that are in an industry that they've just been, I wouldn't say winging it, so to speak, but like you said, they're in the dark ages and now you bring some sort of structure. Like what's the vibe there with them?
Yeah.
Are they like getting it, or is it still a lot of work to change the culture of that
think
sport?
A lot of them are open to it because a lot of them, the sport's becoming more professional across multiple of the combat sports. So like obviously MMA has grown huge with the UFC, and then you got more professional competitions, I used to say, under that. And then jiu-jitsu now has just started to go like in the past few years has skyrocketed in terms of its professionalism, to the prize money and stuff. So there's more people looking to, I guess, more people looking to compete more often and try and make it. So a lot of them are more open to what's going on and trying to find ways where they can better whatever it is. Because like typically, I mean, you probably know, a lot of people know like the tradition around combat sports is like they don't lift weights because it'll make them slow, all that kind of stuff. And so that stuff is slowly kind of going away. Obviously it's still around, but that's just like tradition with most sports. But yeah, a lot of them are seeking this information, which is quite cool.
And what are some of the lessons that you've learned in the MMA or the combat sport world that you wish you had when you were in the NRL or even in the MLR?
Yeah, the conditioning side now, just from the physiology standpoint. So we have like a conditioning mentorship with Dr. Andrew Usher, probably well, I would say easily one of the leading guys using NEARS with his energy system development. And he's like turned it on its head for me and a lot of other people. But I mean, when we talk about just general conditioning, I guess the way it's typically taught, you get taught aerobic, this is anaerobic, this is alactic, blah, blah, blah. And then when you actually look at the physiology and what's happening, it's like, it's impossible. Everything works together. You can't just do something and target this and do something and target that. And then it's just looking at how you can manipulate, I guess you could say, intensity and I guess you could say modalities of exercise where you're looking at change in heart rate during work intervals, change in heart rate during rest intervals, but not just like number of beats. You're looking at kind of like the quality of that change. And then you're able to essentially create and prescribe conditioning methods based on that for that athlete to be able to help them recover between rounds. Because typically, I mean, we've probably all been taught as well, is like, well, you just need to do more aerobic, quote unquote, conditioning, which would typically mean like sit on a bike for 30 to 60 minutes, and you're going to be able to have better repeated sprint ability because you can recover better because recovery processes are aerobic. But then it doesn't take into account everything that happens in those recovery phases and what you actually need to do to do it. Because when we're talking about typically low intensity conditioning, we're talking about biasing or at least skewing the adaptations to the heart level or the delivery. And typically we're probably not limited from delivery, at least in like combat sports, where it's more limited at the muscular level. So we can actually drive those adaptations through, for example, sprint intervals, actually make change in mitochondrial function and have more mitochondria to be able to recover faster between efforts. And you can do that through sprints and it's still quote unquote aerobic, where people will be like, wait, but that's anaerobic or alactic. It's like, well, nothing can be anaerobic because everything you're doing is with oxygen. So then it's just like manipulating these sprint intervals or whatever other modality you're doing to be able to essentially make those physiological changes and then essentially be better at not gassing out.
For sure, yeah. But like with all the research and knowledge out there, even just in the couple of minutes you just explain your philosophy right there in combat sports, why do you still think that it's in that particular sport's in the dark ages? It's right there. It's like it's common knowledge.
Well, it's right there, but not at the same time, because if you search anything like conditioning, I don't know, whatever, cardio for boxing or something like that, you're going to do low intensity road work for 3 times a week.
The messages are wrong, basically.
I'm not going to say they're wrong, because you can take an approach like that. And okay, you can take an approach like that with conditioning and you can still be successful and you can still get some of those adaptations. It's just not as time efficient, and potentially depending on the level, it might not work as well. But the other factor or the issue is like combat sports is so technically, what would you say? It is someone who is very technically gifted or technically good at the sport is just going to win regardless of whatever the other person's version. I mean, similar to an extent in rugby. You're going to find that too.
I would say it's probably like tennis, right? Because I've dealt with a lot of tennis players, and tennis, if you think combat sports in the dark ages, tennis is...
Oh, yeah. Well, what about soccer?
It's ridiculous. Well, yeah, but soccer, but you would go back to like the small-sided game stuff.
Yeah.
In what you're going to do up at rugby, like soccer is literally all small-sided games. Yeah. But it's a small-sided games in soccer is like basically a skill.
Yeah.
Right, rather than a fitness. It's definitely both. There's a lot of research out there for small-sided games, but in my opinion, like
you're not going to prescribe that for like your condition, like your main.
For sure, yeah. Because obviously in that little box and the field is, like, you know what I mean. And there's a lot of walking and slow jogging in soccer, whereas again, I'm coming from the lens of like the UFC world, but obviously even in the jiu-jitsu world or the wrestling world, where you're battling like that ground control for however many minutes and however many rounds, that's tiring.
Yep.
So I get it, but I imagine like you're up against a lot of, particularly in combat sports, there's a lot of gurus out there with conflicting opinions. So it's like, why can't we all get along type deal, right? So like, how do you deal with that? Because
depends what the opinions are. Like
what's an outlandish opinion that you disagree with?
Well, some guys tried to send me a fake cease and desist and then threatened to sue me over
God
an Instagram
damn,
comment.
What's going on? Causing trouble. The foreigner is causing trouble again.
Well, no, it's, again, the biggest thing right now, as you've probably seen in all sports, is like the functional patterns fascia stuff. I'm
Oh
sure you've
yeah.
seen that.
Well, there's a lot of stuff out there that obviously we don't want to get you in trouble, but I think, and I've spoken about this in the past, like, people's opinions have now turned into fact, right?
Yeah.
But it's no longer that the case. But without getting yourself in trouble, though, like, what are some of the philosophies out there that you perceive to be wrong that are common norms in combat sport that you want to change for the better, that you're getting pushback on?
I wouldn't say so much pushback. Like the conditioning side is definitely one of them that goes against the norm because road work has been entrenched into most combat sports, right? Like go for your fight, like Mike Tyson, go for your 5 a.m. runs every morning. That's probably
the Rocky mentality.
Yeah, that's probably the most erroneous one. Obviously, the real basic ones that come up all the time, like I mentioned, like people think weights make you slow. I mean, they can depending on what you're doing, but often it's like, I remember one guy in one of my jiu-jitsu classes a while ago, he was like, oh yeah, he stopped lifting weights because, it felt real sore and stiff after doing them all. I was like, yeah, but if you're going to run chest on Monday, back on Tuesday, legs on Wednesday, etc., yeah, of course, because you're doing like 20 plus sets for your chest and trying to go grapple someone. Yeah, that's a problem. So those are the main, I guess, things that come back. But I mean, yeah, the strength training side changes is, I guess, easier to. It doesn't have as much pushback because I don't think there's either you don't lift weights or like you do lift weights versus the conditioning side. It's like they run a lot.
But are you like the new kid on the block? You haven't come from the sport per se from the very beginning. Like you're trying to essentially revolutionize that type of training. Is that would you say that, or
maybe initially? Now it's a little more established.
I gotcha.
So
yeah,
like,
funny, like where would you want what you're trying to do? Like if you say, hey, combat sports can be better. We can prepare the athletes better. Where would you want to see it go in the next 5-10 years with the work you're trying to do to make because it's all like we all want to go to the same place. We all want to help the athletes. We all want to win. We all want to do all this fancy stuff. But like people get the ego of like, I want to do it my way.
Yeah.
Right. So I get that. But like if you see all the holes in the sport, where would you want it to be in 5-10 years time?
Well, we need to get to the point where there's enough professionals and money for them to actually have support or I guess external support for their stuff. Because if you don't have the money, like there's just no way that any impact can be made because they're going to do it themselves or they're going to find a guy down the road, etc. So until that happens, nothing can really change unless they find the information online. They can start to implement things. So, but I mean, like 5-10 years, like the ideal world would be there's actual teams that have staff employed at the team. So there's like a couple of gyms that do this now, but it's not exactly worldwide. Yeah,
I gotcha. It sounds very much like tennis, whereas like the fighters that have the money, for example, like, and I wanted to touch on this before, but obviously I'm sure you guys had a wrestling coach at the Warriors.
Yep.
And I know when you were in Austin, you were doing the wrestling yourself.
Yeah. And in Romania.
Yeah, well, I stayed away from that because I bunged my shoulder at the Rabbitohs, and then I forgot his name, Mo from Egypt at Austin. He hit into me and he busted my shoulder too. So I was like, I'm out. I'm out. Well, because I was doing all the wrestling for underhooks at the Bears and at the Rabbitohs, and then I'm like, well, I'm this tiny guy, and like they're all these big professional athletes. I was like, nah, I'm out. And then when all the Burgess brothers, I mean, like it might have been just been George, Tom, and Sam. George tackled me on the field after practice one day, and then
broken everything.
Well, not exactly. Well, it wasn't like a full-on tackle. He basically tackled me by the legs and got me on my back.
Yeah.
And then Sam and Tom and Isaac Luke, then I had like probably 400 plus pounds on top of me. Yep. I was like, so after that, I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this shit. I don't want to die. But yes, I've gone away from doing that. But well, my point is like, you have the wrestling coaches, and one of our wrestling coaches at the Rabbitohs just happened to be Alex Pradas and Fab Ite. They were on Rob Whittaker's staff at the time. So Fab was like the high performance manager, so to speak.
Yep.
And Alex was from the Gracie
like lineage.
Yeah, exactly. I think he still works with Rob and maybe has done some stuff with Volk as well, Volkanovski. But they had a team like that, and it was very interesting. And obviously as the relationship that I had with Alex and Fab over time when I moved to the US and Rob was coming up and he fought Jacare Souza up in Kansas City. It was pretty cool. Like they invited me, hey, come, like, be part of the team. And, I wasn't at practice or anything like that, but it was like for the event, I met up with them the night before. They're like, hey, we got a ticket. You'll be with Rob's wife and his best mate and everything like that. And it was awesome.
Yeah.
And then obviously, Rob had remembered me from the Rabbitohs, and it was just like how such a killer like that after the fight was just such a chill gentleman. And I was talking to Fab because he also, when you're in that part of the world, like they know what Volk does and all the Aussie guys, they know, there was a bit of beef with Rob and Israel Adesanya as well at the time. And obviously Izzy is like a huge individual. And basically I was like, said, hey, like, what are these guys really like behind, like during a fight? He's like, yeah, you know what? You have to have a screw loose to fight, right? But he goes, put it this way. We're in this, and we'll have this conversation in a cafe with like 20 people in there. He's like, put it this way. If people like Izzy, Rob, any of these UFC fighters, if we close the doors of this cafe right now and they were the 1 against 20, he goes, no one would be coming out alive. You know what I mean? So it's just like that white line fever. They can switch. They can.
Yeah.
Have you sort of dealt with? Obviously, you've dealt a lot with these fighters, but like, have you got anyone that you think, hey, they've got that little spark that can take them to the big time?
No, not too sure because I don't have many one-on-one people. Most of it's on the training app. I've got a couple of guys that were trying to push like semi-pro, trying to make it to like the contender series and stuff like that. But no, not off the top of my head.
What's like the difference between those that are yours that you're working with on the ground floor versus the ones that can make it to the big time? Like, what is it? What's the missing thing that people need to get that? Is it technical? Is it the it factor? Is it the conditioning? What is it?
Yeah, I mean, everything comes back to like the technical part of the sport. Like, do you have the ability to essentially be able to impart your game, your rhythm, etc. on your opponent? I mean, pretty much like everything else. But at the same time, it's kind of like the skill in MMA, or if we talk MMA specifically, or even jiu-jitsu, it's almost like being able to compete. And jiu-jitsu is being able to compete regularly enough and be able to train enough, which most fighters work full-time and have families, which is tough.
Yeah. Within
MMA, obviously, it's even harder because you don't just have grappling you're dealing with. So you've got more skill set on top. Like, I don't think mentality is such an issue because if you're already fighting and already, as you mentioned, you already have a screw loose. Yeah. Like, you already to be able to go in a cage and literally do MMA and fight someone, like, you have a screw loose. Like, like, I ain't doing that.
Well, who in the world of combat sport, whether it be boxing, in the UFC or the PFL or any of those, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, like, who is doing it the best, you reckon? And I'm not saying like just...
You're talking about like their training?
Well, the athlete and the trainer. Like, do you have any specific athletes or fighters that are like, hey, these are the fighters that are doing it right, and any of their trainers that they have, like whether it be in their gym or similar scenario to what you're doing right now in your business?
Well, City Kickboxing would be now doing it right out of Auckland because they got Bill Smart out of there. He's now, I guess he's basically their almost full-time sports scientist there. And so they're doing a lot of good stuff there and kind of overhauling a lot of what some of these athletes used to be doing in terms of their strength training or their conditioning. So that would be one team that has really overhauled, I guess, their processes, which has been really good, and starting to implement more of the physiology and sports science into what they're doing as well for the athletes.
What about over here? Anyone over here that you can...
I'm not sure over here. I don't have much insight into too many things around here. City Kickboxing would definitely be one in Auckland, but around here, not too sure.
Oh, gotcha.
Trying to think now.
It's like, are they using a bit of research and like trying to, use like the new age stuff?
Yeah, so like a lot of NEARs just for muscle oxygenation data, trying to really dive deep into kind of like the determinants of what makes or what the UFC fighters have physically compared to the rest of the gym, and then also diving deeper into, I guess, the energetic cost of going from grappling or against the cage to the floor to stand up and striking again, because that's kind of like the most taxing part.
Yeah, for sure.
They're going to grappling to striking, grappling to striking.
Yeah.
So just trying to find out what the energy cost is and how to best train to mitigate some of that as well.
Because like the one big thing that I've noticed is that, because obviously you do some work for science, for sport, right?
Yeah.
And on the research side, I want to get your opinion about, because like you're both. You're like, I wouldn't say you're an academic per se, but you do like break down the academics of it. And then also you're a coach, but it takes a real special person to be able to use both, you know, in conjunction with each other. You can't go too far one way or the other.
So that's what we do.
Yeah. So it's like, how do you in your world, like when there isn't a lot of combat sport research, how do you like merge the two together without being too one way or the other? Because like, let's say in the soccer or the rugby or even the football world, like people are, let's say acute to chronic, right? That's a perfect example. That came from the rugby league and the soccer world. But then basically they used that research in sports that were nothing like it, like basketball and American football and all sorts of things. It's like, whoa. Yeah, it's a good concept.
Yeah.
But if I'm using research for a sport that's very much like, you know, aerobic or lactic with a sport that's, you know, very much an anaerobic type of sport, apples and oranges.
Yeah.
Right. So like, I imagine when there's very limited research in combat sports, like you have to pick and choose which one. So how do you bridge that gap, so to speak?
So typically it's like the underpinning physiology is going to be the same regardless of the sport in terms of what you're training. So for combat sports, there is good combat sports research now on the conditioning side, but regardless, it's like, what's the physiology you're trying to change from the exercise you're doing? So that's like number one. So regardless of what's out there, whatever you're trying to change for the sport is basically going to lead at least that philosophy on there. In terms of like the strength training side, same thing. Like, what are the adaptations you're trying to gain? Because what are the adaptations, or at least the qualities you want in the sport of grappling, whatever, striking? So that will then dictate, or at least lead or influence what goes on in that area. So like a really easy example is like, I like to look at like grappling, MMA, and striking on a spectrum. Striking being like more velocity based, grappling being more like force or quote unquote slower based, and MMA kind of like being a hybrid. So just that then will start to dictate maybe how that strength training program will look. Obviously, like if someone's new, you know, you're not going to fucking just have them doing all velocity based work at this end for strikers. But say someone is generally more well trained, hey, maybe you're going to gear a little more of their strength training work to faster movements, whatever else. And then on the grappling side, it might be, okay, you can get away with, I mean, funny enough, like if you look on social media, like a lot of the quote unquote trainers or influencers that are coming to the space kind of gravitate towards like jiu-jitsu and grappling, because it's a sport where you can get away with literally doing bodybuilding or powerlifting programs, because strength and size is such a big advantage
for sure
in that sport. So you can literally just run powerlifting programs and still do pretty well. And then obviously the technical component is just like so big.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
You feel like coming from our side of the world where we have a different philosophy on pretty much
everything
and to do with sports, do you think that's sort of like a little bit of a barrier to entry for what you're dealing with over here, but also like it's catching on with the right people?
Barrier to entry, well, okay, if you're talking about like going into an American sport, yeah, there's no fucking way I would ever be able to get into an American sport. Whether I want to or not, I don't know, probably not at this point. But in terms of like other areas and people catching on, yeah, it's been really good. I mean, now with the internet, everything's international anyway. So always talking to people overseas and stuff like that and collaborating on things. So it's not really an issue. Who's
some of like the big people overseas that you're collaborating with at the moment?
So as I mentioned, Dr. Andrew Usher before and Dr. John Babry, he's done like over 20 years of research on like high intensity training, collagen, protein, shit, all sorts of stuff. Bill Smart, City Kickboxing there in the high performance sport in New Zealand would be another one. Those would be the main ones right now. I think I'll probably
do anything with BFR, because BFR at the moment is like all the craze with like the Hydro are coming out, and you know, I've got some of the new shorts and tried them out.
Nice. Are they good?
Well, I was a bit taken aback because I thought like when it was explained to me, they were like, yeah, you can turn it on and turn it off. In my mind, I was like, well, it's like a cuff. Yeah. And then when I got it, it's just a Velcro. It's just a strap, and like I liked it a
Yeah.
lot. I think it's way more practical, but obviously particular use case, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I like BFR for more like your return to play
Yeah.
rather than just anything else, because you can't get any better than just loading, right?
Yeah. I use it for my warm-ups pretty much every session now.
Like just to get the blood flowing.
Just like if I have knee pain or like hip pain or something, I just got like voodoo floss bands from like 10 plus years ago. I use those, and then I'll do like just like, so for example, just say bodyweight squats a couple of sets with the bar, put on the first warm-up weight, squat a couple of sets, then take them off. And then go through.
Yeah.
And then like your legs and hips feel like mean after that. So I'll do that.
Yeah.
Or I'll do it like if I've done, I don't know, let's just say I've done like a lot of jumping or whatever, I'm like fucking really sore. I'll like strap them on and I'll go on like the leg extension and do like your typical protocol, like 30, 15, 15, 15. And then that will make my knees feel really good too.
I gotcha. What about in like the weightlifting world? Like, have you brought anything across? Obviously, your wife is like a Commonwealth game.
Yeah.
And for anyone that doesn't know what the Commonwealth Games in the US, it's like we're part of like the motherland British Empire.
Yep.
And the ones that couldn't get away from the persecution ended up staying in their kingdom, and then we have the Commonwealth Games. But like obviously she was a medalist and whatnot. Yep. So clearly you're around and Olympic lifting a lot. Couple things, like have you brought any of that philosophy to MMA?
Yeah.
And B, is it hard to when is she still competing?
Not internationally, but she's decided she's going to go, because she was a CrossFit Games athlete too.
Oh, okay.
So she's going to do a CrossFit coming
That's like
up.
a nice little like transfer.
Yeah.
But when she was at her peak in weightlifting,
yeah,
like, did you find it hard to like? Well, did you train with her or train her?
I didn't train her, no, because she had coaches here in the US, and then when we moved to Romania, she trained with they have like clubs.
Yeah,
like
I was gonna say, like, was it hard to like not get involved and just like
no.
Is he just like
just train like like strength sports? I love strength sports. I love competing them too, but that's not like my bread and butter. It's not like something.
I gotcha. But sometimes like you're with a partner and you're like the industry and you do your own philosophy. Then you're like, I don't really like how they're training. What I mean? Like
every now and then that always comes up, and we're just like, damn. Like for example, like during their quote unquote off season, at one point at the club, it was like twice a day, double day trainings, but it was the same every day for weeks. And
in Romania?
And it was like volume. Like
the Eastern European block type training.
Like 8 sets of 5 pulls.
God
and
damn.
then like I think it was the same on squats, and that was just the morning. And then it was the evening, everything else. And it was like, especially when she had already gone through such heavy training periods for Commonwealth Games. So this was training for the Olympics. The toll on her body from that, as well as she's just like basically peaked for that medal, and then coming off the back of that and then running that kind of volume with like no variety. It's like, it's soul crushing.
Yeah, I
got the body and mind. Yeah.
So how I want to go on this because it's actually pretty interesting. So, like, how tough of a sport is weightlifting when you compare it to other sports out there?
Dude, it is crazy. It is tougher than, I reckon it's tougher than rugby.
Yeah.
In terms of like, bro, she would train double day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then once Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And the way they set the schedule up for the international competitions to qualify for like the Olympics, it's like a juicer schedule. Only a juicer could do 6 competitions in 2 years, like train and peak for 6 competitions to be able to get a high enough score to actually qualify. So like the toll of that training and competing with the travel on top of it is like insanity.
And that's purely power sport. So like you need to have that very good processes when you're traveling internationally, the jet lag, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I remember there was another Australian male weightlifter that worked with us at the Rabbitohs, and he was like, I never knew this. Again, I was young. I was like only 21, 22. But he was like, in the warm-up behind, before they go and do their rep, like they're basically cleaning close to max behind the scenes, because like they need to get like that neuromuscular firing. It's like, that's crazy. So not only are they trying to pull out, enough numbers to win a medal, and in some cases, get a Commonwealth Games record or world record. Yeah. They do that behind the scenes, and then they got to go and do it again shortly after. It's insane.
Yeah, it depends on the athlete too. Like they'll either do their opener at the back, or they'll stop like whatever their weight is before the open. It's
still like 90, 95. Yeah, so it's still pretty close.
If your max is like 100, and you're opening at like 90 or 95, you'd be lifting up to 90 or 95 in the back and then coming out and doing the weight. Yeah.
It's crazy. But yeah, so back, I know I've gone on all sorts of tangents, but back to what my point before was like, with all that knowledge with your wife and what being like a high level Olympic lifter, what have you learned? Like, have you brought anything that across to like MMA and whatnot?
Yeah, mainly for grapplers, and some MMA, not so much for strikers in this instance, but like weightlifting complexes and just I guess more weightlifting derivatives. Just because like if you're doing say snatch pulls or clean pulls plus like Romanian deadlifts in a complex, man, like your back and hips and shit are going to be like the strongest out there. No one's good. As soon as you grab someone, like you're going to be able to hip in, you're going to be good.
Yeah.
And it trains that kind of, you're maintaining that posture over the bar, which again is still important in wrestling and jiu-jitsu and stuff, where you're having people trying to break your posture all the time. So there's like these like little things that work and translate quite well into those sports. For strikers, I think you could probably do some other things just because, again, more on the velocity side. Yeah, I mean, you can do them, but there's probably other things you can do that are less hard.
Yeah.
Less hard
Yeah,
to
I
do.
gotcha. Yeah. So with all the stuff, because like, been sort of like researching this and sort of getting a bit of a feel for like, you've got like a million different hats, a million different things going on. So how do you have time?
Dude, too many.
I know, right? But how do you have time, like the work-life balance situation? Like talk us through that, because there's plenty of people out there. Like,
yeah,
I just met with a local fitness trainer here just before this, and she was the same thing. She's like, yeah, like I'm busy doing a million different things. So there's like there's a lot of us out there that are doing 1,000 different jobs. One of my buddies in California who just came back, I was spending the week, he's doing a million different things. Like, we're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
But how do we, like, how do you sort of get that time for your family and your work-life balance?
Basically, I just prioritize in the day, like the main things I need to do, or at least the main thing. It doesn't always happen with 2 kids, but like I try and get like the main thing, at least get like an hour or 2, like where I have to like film a video or do something, and then do what I need to do with the kids, whether it's like in the day, like put one of our oldest one to bed. She's 2.5, and to get her to bed in the day and in the night takes an hour or more. So that's 2 hours of my day gone there, like, or more than 2 hours usually. So I'm literally just like, whenever there's time in the day, like maybe they are eating and my wife is there with them, I'll try and do some work or whatever it is. Or in the morning, it's like, I got to do something. She'll take them for maybe an hour or 2, or if they're out, or it's just literally, then after they go to bed at night, I'll work like an hour or 2.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So it's just like literally whenever there's time, like there's no schedule, there's no routine. It's just literally like when there's time, I'll do something.
Well, speaking of which, like what lessons have you learned about like being a father that you've been able to bring to your career? Because obviously, like, it changes your life, right? Yep. You got your kids, you have, these little versions of you, you know what I mean, running around, and there's no like manual about how to raise them and whatnot. But then, now you're a father, like the people that you deal with are almost like your children too, right? So how do you like what lessons have you brought across that you feel like have made you a better coach, made you a better practitioner?
I don't know about better coach or practitioner. I think the main thing, probably even just learn from being in the industry or in the profession first and then having kids, is that no organization, team, whatever it is, none of them really care about you or your role at whatever it is. Whatever you do there, it sounds so bleak. Everyone's listening, probably like, dude, this guy's like depressed now. But like these teams and stuff, they don't give a shit. They don't give a shit. You're replaceable.
Well, in the pros, like, you can understand where they're coming from, because there is an owner that is putting
pressure to be able to
not
win.
just that, but like it's his money going to pay you. So it's like, once you're in that situation, like, they do own you, and it makes sense because it's coming out of his own pocket.
Yeah. But then at the same time, there's a disconnect, right? Because the disconnect is, paying.
Then you're expendable now.
Yeah, I'm paying you. You need to do X, Y, Z, but they don't understand the processes that it takes to actually win. They just think throwing more money at the problem.
For sure, Again, I always like to think of it on both ends of the spectrum, because pro and collegiate sports an absolute shit show right now. It's like a revolving door, and the quality of life there is not the greatest. But I tell you what, like, me personally, if I had the opportunity to go and, work for a year in the NFL,
Yeah.
like I would take it just for the experience.
Yeah.
Would I want to do that for the next 20 years of my life? Probably not.
Mhm.
But it is a goal of mine to work in the NFL, just to have that experience. That, hey,
Yeah.
like it would be a cool venture to have, but with the changing landscape of sport, you understand like you have to sacrifice
Yeah, exactly.
a lot. So I get
Exactly.
that too, but you have to look at it on both ends of the
Yeah.
spectrum. It's like when you go into that environment, you know what the deal is.
Yeah.
Don't be naive to think that when you work in
Yeah.
a pro
But that's the thing,
environment,
when you
that you're
start,
going to get the best of everything.
you start with loyalties. When you first start in the profession, you're like, it's almost like you're loyal to this club or organization because they gave you this opportunity. And then you start to learn like, maybe these things don't really exist as you come through. But that's like something kind of like, I guess you brought back into like the family life. Like I'm home with my wife and kids every day. I obviously do some work and things like that at home, but just being with them and knowing that like I could be away for 6-8 week camps, but what good is that really for my family? Like that kind of stuff. So that's more of I guess a lesson that I've kind of brought over.
For sure. But what about like if you had to go back, either tell your younger self?
Oh, everything I did, I'm stoked to do.
Yeah.
But young, single at that time, or at least like young, maybe girlfriend back home, whatever. But young and single, fuck yeah, go out, travel on someone else's dime, experience different countries and work with different people. Hell yeah, that's 100% worth it. 100% worth it. But it just depends. Obviously, life comes in stages.
Yeah.
Now I'm a dad and everything with 2 kids, and it's like, well, we can't go having a visa
Reality
attached to a
sets in.
club, and then 2 years later we have to move country again.
Yeah.
Like, dude, there's no way.
Yeah, the reality sets in, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we have like a little segment. It's like the Wheel of Valor, and we like to finish it off. So, basically, Will, if you want to bring out the little wheel. So we got like a couple of different categories, as you can see. You got this isn't where I park my car, unsung heroes, take the L, history lessons, touchdown, sliding doors, you up, hold the line. So you're telling me there's a chance, chasing waterfalls. That's it. Great. So basically there's like a question attached
to each one,
to each of them. So give it a spin. Now we've had a couple of them the same. So if we land on that same one, oh come on, you're strong.
Wait. I didn't know.
If we land on one that's like the same, we'll do it again.
What's that one?
So you're telling me there's a chance. Okay, well, I don't think we've had this one before. This is good.
Perfect.
What's the time you took a long shot and it actually worked?
A long shot and it actually worked. What would you count as a long shot though?
Well, moving halfway across the world, it's probably a bit of a long shot.
Well, that worked out in the end. Just taking the contract to go to Romania for the first time. That was my first full-time gig. And it was nice because I'd interviewed for, you know how it goes. I interviewed another role at like a provincial academy, and then they just gave it to the guy that was already there or interning or whatever it is. Funnily enough, at that time, it was like such good timing because I was heading up the academy at the Warriors at that time. I had to re-interview for that job, and then they didn't give it to me. And I was like, and they're like, oh, yeah, but you can continue interning. And I was like, no,
mate.
I'm gone. I've already signed another contract. All good.
But did you go over there thinking like, you know what? Like, what was the mentality by going over there? Because like, you think, okay, coming to the US, like the US is like the sexy place to live. You were like, I'm going to Romania. I was like, route. Like that's different country.
Funnily enough, I was talking to my mate it must have been the year before. I said, man, I just want to go to some random country like Romania and just fucking work. And then that popped up. I was like, oh, okay. That worked. But yeah, it's like I didn't really care where I was going. I just wanted to work. All I cared about was working full time as a coach. I didn't care about the money. I didn't care about anything. I just want to work full time. That's it.
And what were the lessons that you took from Romania, working in a country that you didn't speak the language? It was Eastern European bloc, like very different than what you used to in little old New Zealand.
Yeah. Well, luckily half the team was.
Well, yeah, but still, you're living in a foreign country still.
Yeah.
It's very different. Like, it's one thing for us to say, hey, we're Australian or New Zealand living in the US where the language is the same to living in a country where it's like completely different values and languages and customs and everything like that. So what did you take out of
that? You learn quickly how other countries and organizations are run outside of a relatively well-run bubble of Australia and New Zealand. So you learn pretty quickly that not everything is the same around the world in terms of organizations.
No, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, man, thanks for coming down and having a chat. We'll put the links up to your business,
Oh yeah,
Sweet Science of
sweet.
Fighting. I know you got a million others. Like you also do the Science for Sport.
Yeah, I got Lift Big, Eat Big.
Yeah, that one
Yeah.
there. Obviously everyone, check it out. Give some love to James. But yeah, thanks for coming through and having a chat.
No, I appreciate it, man. It's good. I think this is my first in-person podcast that I've ever done.
That's what we're doing, man. We're changing the game.
Yeah, changing the game,
in
person
baby.
only.
But yeah, thanks for coming down, and we'll have to get you on at some point. See the
Sweet.
progression of
Yeah.
what you're doing over here.
For sure.